What is up, everybody? SchwayZ here, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing America's best-selling plug-in hybrid. We're talking the newly facelifted 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4xE. Now, before we dive into today's video, I do want to extend a huge thank you to Doug Smith, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram of American Fork, Utah, for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle for you all today. If you guys are in the market for a new vehicle, as I'm sure you can see, they have a large assortment of different inventory, including a Durango Hellcat. So make sure you reach out to them. I'm going to put their information in the description below and let them know that SchwayZ sent you. All right, so what exactly is the Wrangler 4xE? Well, if you guys aren't familiar with this trim level, this is actually the plug-in hybrid version of the very popular Jeep Wrangler, and it's actually been revised for the 2024 model year inside and out, and we'll show off some of those updates in today's video. We'll do an exterior interior walk around, and then we'll take this thing for a drive, and I'll show you how it feels sitting behind the wheel of this partially electric Jeep Wrangler. Now, starting off with the front end, it has been revised a little bit for the 2024 facelift. You may notice the biggest difference really has to do with the grille. It's got a new feature where you've actually got air inlets in between the slots of this 7-slot grille. So it's a very small change, and it's probably going to be hard to notice, but they did this for a reason, because certain trim levels of the Wrangler can come equipped from the factory with an 8,000-pound Warn winch. And because that winch kind of protrudes into this grille area, they had to make it a little bit shorter and open up these sections over here so you can get greater airflow into the engine, so you don't compromise the efficiency of the engines with that winch installed from the factory. Now, I pointed this out on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 that I reviewed, and to be honest, it's very hard to tell if you're standing from a distance whether this is really updated from the 2024 model year. The best way to tell if this is the facelift is probably on the inside, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Now, this particular 4xE does come with LED headlights and LED daytime running lights, which look really good at night. Now, moving down below, one thing you'll notice that differentiates this from the regular Wrangler is these blue recovery hooks. In fact, you're going to find blue accents all throughout the Jeep Wrangler 4xE, regardless of which trim and spec that you pick. That's kind of the color that Stellantis is choosing for electrified vehicles in its lineup. Now, coming across the side, one thing you'll notice is, first off, you've got more blue accents surrounding the Jeep logo. You've got Wrangler written out in blue script, and you've even got your trail rated badge outlined in a little bit of blue trim. Now, one thing you may notice here is every single 2023 Jeep Wrangler came with an antenna here, but as of 2024, they actually removed it from the side of the vehicle. That antenna is now integrated into the windshield. Now, some people may complain that this is going to cause windshields to be more expensive, but at least now you won't have anything flapping in the wind because, well, it's now integrated into the windshield itself. For better or for worse, that's kind of what they decided to do with 2024. Now, another thing to mention is every single 4xE comes in one configuration, and that's this 4-door setup. You cannot get a 2-door Jeep Wrangler 4xE, and part of that reason is because the battery is located underneath the rear seats, and so if you have a shorter wheelbase, you're really not going to be able to get that electric range that you get from the powertrain underneath this vehicle. You may have noticed that this one is outlined to be the Sahara trim level, and I'm a little upset that they don't have blue accents around the Sahara, but I guess I'm asking too much. But what I do want to point out is, as of 2024, more trim levels can now be had in this 4xE powertrain. So before, you only had about 3 trim levels. Now you can get upwards of 6. You've got the Sport S, the Willys, this one being the Sahara. You can get the high altitude. There's the Rubicon and the Rubicon X. So if you guys want to have a little bit of that electric range, that hybrid powertrain, you can now get it in a variety of different price options as of the 2024 model year. Now, moving across the side of the vehicle and over to the back, there's really no changes from the 2023 model year, and it really didn't need it. It's a pretty good looking, attractive vehicle overall, and Jeep doesn't make huge changes year after year because, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So you still have these LED taillights in the back. You've also got a little bit more of that 4xE with that blue badging, and you've got your spare tire on the rear end, and then down at the bottom, more blue recovery hooks where you have your tow hitch receiver. So now that we finish off the exterior, let's jump underneath the hood and talk about what's going on here. Now, to open up the hood on the Jeep Wrangler, it's really easy to do. You just open up these latches on the left and the right hand side, and then it will automatically open up the hood. You don't actually have to pull a hood latch lever on the inside. All right, let's talk about what's going on under the hood. Here we have a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that produces on its own about 270 horsepower. But because this engine is also paired with an electric motor that's powered by a battery located underneath the second row, this thing actually produces a combined output of 375 horsepower and a whopping 470 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure is almost identical to the amount that the 392 6.4-liter V8 produces in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. So an insane amount of torque, and Jeep Jeep says you can do 0 to 60 in this thing in just about 6 seconds. So this is pretty much the second quickest Jeep Wrangler you can buy in the lineup. Quick item to point out is all of that power is sent through an 8-speed automatic transmission, and your towing capacity is 3,500 pounds on the 4xE. Now, the 2024 model year did add up to 5,000 pound towing capacity for certain trim levels, but the 4xE is not one of those. Now, in regards to the battery, like I said, it's located underneath the second row seats, and we're talking a 17.3 kilowatt battery. So it's not very massive, but it is large enough that it still qualifies for the federal government's $7,500 tax credit. Now, Jeep says you can go upwards of 21 miles on all electric range, but you can also put it in a drive mode where it will use both gas and electricity to power this vehicle and get the best MPG. In terms of MPG, Jeep says you can get 49 miles of MPGe and upwards of 370 miles on a single tank of gas. Now, you may be wondering what happens to the vehicle if this battery dies because I drive more than 21 miles a day. Well, in my research, nothing really happens. You still have a little bit of juice always in the battery, even if the vehicle tells you otherwise. And so that way, if you're accelerating on the freeway or just driving in day-to-day traffic, you're really not going to notice that there's no juice flowing into your electric motors because there's always just a little bit. And there are certain screens on the inside where you can see exactly where the power is flowing. Really, the only downside of that battery dying because you drive more than 21 miles is that your fuel economy is going to come down. In my research from owners of 4xEs, I've seen that once that battery dies, you're probably looking a little bit under 20 mpg. But if this battery is fully charged and you have a full tank of gas, you could probably average somewhere around 20 to 22 mpg if you're taking this on a road trip. Now, charging the Jeep is also pretty easy. You've got this little flap over here on the driver's side, and you push this open, and that opens up your charge port. Now, Jeep says you can use either a level 1 charger, which is essentially your household outlet at home, and that will take this battery from 0 to 100% in just about 12 hours. But I recommend installing a level 2 charger, which uses the 240 volt plug that you have in your house, and that will take this thing from 0 to 100% in just about 2 hours. I do want to point out one little Jeep Easter egg located in this charge port area. You've got this old 1940s Jeep Wrangler climbing up this mountain, and this is actually your charge indicator, so this will actually flash when you're charging the vehicle. Now, Jeep is also working on installing some solar powered charging stations at major trails located throughout the United States. I personally haven't seen one yet, but let me know in the comments below if you've seen one at major trails in your area. All right, now's a good time to hit that pause button and click the subscribe button. That helps me a lot bring more cool cars like this onto the channel. All right, now let's get back to the video. Now, before we jump on the inside and talk about the changes on the interior, I do want to point out a couple things with this Sahara trim level. First off, you've got body painted fenders. Most of the time on like the Rubicon or some of the other trim levels, they're going to be black plastic, and they look really good. I like when they paint them the same color as the body because it makes it look a little bit more luxurious or premium. And that's kind of what the Sahara trim level is. Now, talking about these wheels and tires, we're talking 20-inch wheels on this thing, which is a little bit different than something you can get on the more off-road trim levels of the Wrangler. We're talking 255 60 R20s, and these are all season tires. Now, one thing I do want to point out is another little Easter egg with that blue Jeep logo signifying the 4xE trim level of this particular Wrangler. All right, jumping inside, let's talk about some of the changes on the interior. First off, starting off with the door panel, you do have soft touch material all throughout the top, which is really nice. Nice leather padding here where you're going to rest your elbow. And then this one has this nice gold stitching. I think that's a hallmark of the Sahara trim level, to be specific. You also have aluminum door handles here. Your mirror controls are located there, and you've got your lock and unlock underneath. Then you got a little netted compartment here where you can place random different items. Now, this particular one I'm reviewing today does come with the optional leather seat package, and it looks really good. I like the Sahara script up here, the gold stitching. That black and gold does look really nice on the interior of this vehicle. And for a first for 2024, you have 8-way power adjustable seats, and you've got lumbar support. So for those of you that used to complain about the seat comfort of the Wrangler, well, the 2024 model year has solved those problems, at least to a certain extent. Now, moving inside, let's talk about some of the controls here. You have your headlight controls, you have your adjuster for the brightness of your gauge cluster, and then down below here, this is how you can regulate how the power is being delivered inside the vehicle. So of course you have your gas flap release button, and then you've got a hybrid mode where it will split the power pretty much 50-50. You've got the all electric button where you can get that 21 miles of all electric range, and then you've got the e-save button. Not really sure exactly when you'll probably use this, but this will prioritize using more of the internal combustion engine rather than using the battery. So that way you can store a little bit more range in your battery when you really need it. Down below that, you have your speaker grille. This vehicle, being the Sahara trim level, comes with an 8-speaker audio system. And then down at the bottom, you got your all-weather floor mats and rubber-lined pedals. Now, jumping inside, this is where the largest change for the 2024 model year occurred, and that is this large screen. So this is a 12.3-inch display, and it's all new for 2024. They actually had to make quite a few changes on the inside to be able to integrate this screen into the vehicle. So first, these vents are no longer circular like you'd find on the 2023 model year. You now have these horizontal vents. Also on the passenger side, they had to make some changes to the grab handle over here, so it's a little bit of a different style to it. I do like the use of this material over here. It's leather wrapped. You got a little bit more of that gold stitching over onto the passenger side, and then you do still have circular vents on the passenger and the driver's side. Now we'll talk about the screen here in just a minute. Let's point out the gauge cluster. This remains unchanged from the 2023 model year. You got a 7-inch gauge cluster display, and then you'll notice over here, it'll tell you what your battery life is. So it says 97%, and it tells me I can go upwards of 29 miles of all-electric range, but it's not really believable, especially given the temperatures today. We're in the high 30s, low 40s. I don't think you're going to get 29 miles, maybe ever. Perhaps you'll get close to that. I think TfL got somewhere near around 27 by really feathering the pedal, but the EPA estimates it at 21, and that's probably more accurate. Now, on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, you've got a little bit more of that leather stitching with your circular vent, and then they have improved some of the materials here for 2024. So this is all leather-wrapped, soft-touch surfaces, which feel really nice. One thing to point out, and a difference from me sitting in my Bronco, is your windshield is incredibly close to the driver. So it takes a little bit getting used to if you're not used to a Jeep, but that's identical to the 2023 model year. Also, no changes to the steering wheel. It's nice leather wrapped, a little bit more of that gold stitching over here. Left-hand side are your buttons to control your instrument gauge cluster display. On the right-hand side are your buttons for your cruise control. So this vehicle does come with adaptive cruise control as optional. You do have blind spot monitoring as optional as well. And you can get this vehicle with a lane keep assist. Now, I do want to point out that you cannot get an all-digital gauge cluster display on the 2024 Wrangler, not even on the highest trim levels or the most expensive vehicles. You still have this analog gauge mixed with a little bit of that digital for the oil temperature. And then on the right-hand side, you've got your digital gas meter, but then the rest of it, which includes the amount of power you're delivering from that electric motor, over as an analog gauge, which is a little surprising because you'd think that would be more of a digital one. There's actually no analog speedometer on the 4xE. Your digital speedometer is located front and center. I don't mind that they don't have an all-digital display. It would be nice as an option, but the gauges look pretty good overall, and that's why I'm okay with it. Now, moving towards this 12.3-inch infotainment screen, this runs on the latest Uconnect 5 system. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, which is nice. And I've reviewed this system in the 2024 Wrangler 392 that I reviewed earlier this year, and it's pretty easy to use. You got your quick access buttons over here on the left-hand side. You can, of course, pair your phone. You can pull up a bunch of different settings. And the particular vehicle I'm reviewing today does come with the forward and the rear-facing camera, and you can actually activate the wash function for the front-facing camera as well, which is nice. And then at the top of the page is where you can open up your climate control settings, so you can regulate the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, which this particular vehicle I'm reviewing today comes with, and you can also regulate the passenger side on the right-hand side. And it's a pretty responsive system overall. I have really no complaints with it. It's on par with a lot of the competition. Now, this one being the electric version, you do have your hybrid electric app, and that's where it's going to show you exactly where the energy is flowing. It'll show off your driving history, the schedules where you can figure out when you're going to plug it in and what time you want it to charge to. Right now it says estimated time to charge on level 1 is about an hour and 36 minutes and about 11 minutes on a level 2. And that's just because I'm sitting at 97%. You've also got your e-save functionality where you can, charge the battery or you can save the battery. So lots of controls baked in here that you can play around with, just because this one is the 4xE version. Moving below the screen, you've got a set of redundant physical buttons, which is really nice for those of you that hate touchscreen controls. You got your physical volume button. You got a button for your climate controls, heated steering wheel, and heated seats. You don't have to go through the menus up here. You've also got your fan speed controls, dual zone climate control, and then the button to regulate where the fan is blowing. You've also got a physical tune knob here. Down here at the bottom, you've got a button to activate your max regen. So if you push this button, it will tell you on the screen whether it's on or off, and that will help bring a little bit more juice into the battery. There have been some stories out there where if you're driving this down a canyon, you can get almost upwards of 50 miles of all-electric range because, well, you're going to be using that regen mode, and this thing is going to be mostly coasting down the hill, because when you're going downhill from a mountain, the engine will automatically turn off, and so that should save a little bit of fuel economy there. And then you've got your off-road cruise control here, and then you can turn the screen off. Down below here, in typical Jeep fashion, you've got your window switches located in the middle. You can also lock and unlock the windows as well. And then you got a cigarette-style power outlet and a set of 2 USB ports and an auxiliary jack, and then you've got your aux switches down here. So this vehicle does come with pre rewiring located throughout the vehicle, so you can hook up like a light bar or a winch and then activate it using the buttons down here. You got a little rubberized compartment over here where you could store a wallet or a phone, and then this is your selector for your 4 high, 4 low, and 4 auto. It's kind of a more traditional analog way to shift it rather than something that you'd find in the Bronco where it's all electronic, but it's nice that you have a 4 auto included in this vehicle. Your gear selector is nice where you got your little 1940s Jeep over there. 2 cup holders with a little slot where you could put your phone, a manual handbrake, and then this is all nice leather touch surfaces. Opening this up, you got a 2-tier storage compartment, so you got your top over there, and then you can open up the second section. You got a USB port in there as well, and then over on the passenger side, you can open up your glove compartment. It's a little bit on the smaller side, but this vehicle is generally on the smaller side. I mean, I can reach over and touch the passenger side without really a problem. It's a little bit tighter than what you'd find in the Ford Bronco. Now, moving up above you got your rear view mirror. There's no camera function. Now, this particular vehicle I'm reviewing today comes with the Sky One Touch Power roof. So with the push of this button, this entire panel actually slides open. Let me show you what that looks like. And just like that, you have this really large opening above you. Now, the one downside of having a Jeep Wrangler is you have this crossbar in between the first and the second row. The Bronco actually has it behind the second row, so that opens up this large area, but it's still really nice. You've got a really nice view out the second row. Now, this is a really nice option, but it is very expensive. We're talking $4,000 just to have this Sky One Touch Power roof. Now, as we climb out and go into the second row, I do want to point out that every single 2024 model year comes with side curtain airbags. That's a first for a Jeep Wrangler. Now, jumping into the second row, let's talk about some of the features here. So first off, again, more soft touch material on the door panel, which is nice for the second row. More leather wrapped surfaces, nice contrast stitching, aluminum door handle here, and your lock and unlock feature there, along with a net at the bottom. Now, we already showed off the battery underneath the seats, but I do want to point out these seats real quick. They are really nice looking, leather wrapped. You've got a little bit more of that copper stitching over there as well. And then climbing inside of the second row, it's kind of hard to get into, but one complaint I do have is this section over here, this door latch is completely exposed. And so when I was reviewing the 2024 Wrangler 392, I would constantly hit my elbow up against this surface. And the reason that happens is, as you can see, the seat is actually located behind this pillar over here. So if you're reaching for something on this seat and pulling your arm out, you're gonna always hit this thing with your elbow, and it's very painful. I don't get why they couldn't have just recessed this back a little bit and giving you a little bit of a lip over here so you don't accidentally hit this every single time you climb in and out. If you ever have a car seat back here, that's going to be something you're going to definitely watch out for as you pull it in and out of the vehicle. Now, back to what I was saying over here. When you climb inside, you actually got pretty decent legroom back here, and there's not too much of an angle with my seating position. I will point out that getting in and out, your foot does sometimes get stuck over on this opening over here because it is a generally smaller opening in the second row. Nice advantage here with the Wrangler as opposed to some of the other competition is you do have second row air vents back here, which is really nice, and you got your window switches over here in the center, typical Jeep fashion, and you've got a set of 4 different USB ports down here and a household power outlet, so plenty of stuff to hook up into if you want to charge different devices back here. This one does come with the center armrest, which is nice, leather wrapped. You got 2 cup holders, and then up above you is a continuation of your 8-speaker audio system. In terms of headroom back here, because this is the soft top and you've got this large opening up above you, it's actually really good. It's not so good right below the airbag, but you're really not ever going to have your head in this position. All right, now let's climb into the trunk area. Typical Jeep fashion, you've got your opening over here that has a lot of different specs about your car, including your approach angle, your water fording capabilities. It's pretty cool. It's a little plaque there. And then you've got this dual opening where the glass will open upwards. Now, talking about the trunk area, not too much to report back here. This one does have the 8-speaker Alpine subwoofer. And then there is a little bit of space underneath where you can store your charging cable. And then, of course, little sections where you can put the bolts that you take off from the vehicle when you take off the doors. You do have a cigarette-style power outlet. Now, one disadvantage with this one being the 4xE, and I'm going to try to show it off over here, is you have this much larger lip. So when you actually fold down these seats, they don't go down all the way. In fact, this is pretty much as far as it goes. You still have a pretty steep angle, and you've got quite a bit of height over here. And that's, again, because the battery is located underneath the second row seats. So if you're used to using your Jeep kind of like a pickup truck where you have a flat area for the most part, and you can maybe put like a little sleeping bag or an air mattress, you're not really going to be able to do that with this version because you have so much extra height inside of the second row. And there's a look from the inside on how that second row seat really folds down. Now, how much of a difference is it really? Well, in terms of cargo capacity, you got 27.7 cubic feet of space behind that second row and 67.4 cubic feet of space if you fold the second row down. As compared to the standard Wrangler without the 4xE option, you're looking at 31.7 cubic feet of space behind the second row and 72.4 cubic feet of space behind the first row. So we're talking about 3 or 4 cubic feet less in this 4xE trim level as compared to the standard Wrangler. All right, so setting off inside of the Wrangler 4xE, one of the first things you'll notice is there is no engine sound. And that is when the battery is fully charged, of course, but when I turn this vehicle on, it's on, but just like any other EV, you can't actually tell. The only way I can tell is they have that graphic turn on, and I can actually start turning the steering wheel. But other than that, you really don't know that this vehicle is turned on. Now, right now, I'm sitting at 96%. It says it has 29 miles of range. And we're gonna hit the main road and see how this thing feels. And we're sitting in hybrid mode. So it's gonna actually is both the electric and the gas engine to provide power. And then I can switch it to electric mode if I really want to and have that all electric range that is pretty impressive for a vehicle of this size. I mean, this kind of is the best of both worlds, electric and gas. And then as I let off of the gas pedal, I noticed there's a little bit of regen braking. Now the regen braking isn't super noticeable. I gotta say, I just let go of the gas pedal and I can barely tell that it's working. I mean, it's not a very aggressive regen mode like you'd find in a lot of electric vehicles. It's pretty normal overall. It doesn't feel that much different than a typical gas engine. But I just gunned it a little bit and I was in electric mode and I could tell that the vehicle turned on the gas engine. So when you're really pressing on the pedal hard, it's going to use both the gas and the electric motor to get you the power that you're really looking for. Now, I'm not going to gun it really hard in this vehicle because it's a brand new car and it's not mine, so I'm not going to break the break-in period, but I kind of want to just see how does this vehicle feel when you gun it just a little. That was about a quarter of the way down, and it's not bad. It's definitely not as quick as a typical EV, but it feels a little bit more torquey than your typical internal combustion engine. I mean, with that electric motor on, this is plenty of power. There's really no complaints about it. Now, do I think it has the same amount of torque as the Wrangler 392? It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, on paper it is, but it doesn't feel like it. It kind of feels just a little bit more than your typical internal combustion engine, but it doesn't have that neck snapping amount of power that you'd find in that 392. It also doesn't have nearly as good of a sound. When I'm accelerating in EV mode, it kind of has this electric sound to it, which sounds kind of interesting coming from a Wrangler because you're kind of not used to it. Yeah, it's kind of got this like electric charge sound. It's pretty interesting. But at the end of the day, this is still a Wrangler. It rides like one too. I mean, it's bouncy over the road. It's exactly what Wrangler buyers want to see from their vehicle. This just happens to have a little bit of better fuel economy, a little bit more power than your typical Pentastar V6 or your turbocharged 4-cylinder. It's kind of an interesting thing to drive, especially when you have some of that instant torque. Yeah, it's really interesting. Now, one thing I find interesting is because this has a quieter engine, you hear a lot more of that road noise that you may not be used to because, well, you typically have an engine that kind of blocks out some of that sound. And so this is going to be a loud vehicle, but that's to be expected from a Wrangler. All right, let's finish off this video talking about warranty and pricing. In terms of warranty, it's the standard 3-year, 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty and a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. Kind of wish they bumped it up just because of that electric powertrain. Now, in terms of pricing, like I mentioned, the 2024 model year has a few additional trim levels. The Sport S trim level with the 4xE starts around $51,000, and then the top of the line Rubicon X starts around $71,000. So it's quite a big difference, and you can get that Rubicon X equipped with even more features to get it over 75 grand. Kind of insane for a Jeep Wrangler, but that's kind of the prices we're looking at today. Now, this particular vehicle behind me with the Sahara trim, along with the additional leather seats and that Sky One Touch power roof, this one sits around $68,000. But what are your thoughts on the Jeep Wrangler 4xE? Honestly, if you're looking at an extremely capable off-road vehicle that has pretty good fuel economy and can possibly even drive on all electric range to and from work if you're within 20 miles, this is really the only option out there. You don't have any of that type of powertrain capabilities from the Bronco or pretty much anything else in this space. This is really the only one that offers kind of the best of both worlds, where you have some all-electric range and you still have that cool rugged exterior with those off-road capabilities. Now, it doesn't come cheap, and that is probably one of my biggest complaints of this vehicle. I wish it was priced a little bit more affordable. At the same time, even the base Wrangler with the regular powertrain is not a cheap vehicle. I mean, they start in the mid-30s. And this one is definitely a lot more complex with that dual powertrain setup. So I guess the price is kind of warranted. One thing I do wish they had was a little bit of a longer range battery. I wish it pushed maybe 35, maybe 40 miles, because that would even make this thing even more capable and add to that fuel efficiency. But let me know your thoughts on the Jeep Wrangler 4xE down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also check me out on all the social media at SchwayZ_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay SchwayZ, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.